Hello again. The surface was that of worn stone, flat and shimmering with a multitude of iridescent colors within, each streaking into the next with a synchronicity of new colors by those connections. Eventually, these massive flat stones, which seemed to jut from the ground sporadically, broke down further and further until they were sand, the most spectacular sand ever imagined. This is where the statue was first seen. When the new historic council began rewriting and rebuilding the human race civilizations, they had little knowledge of the surroundings, as this would be the first time the host planet was enriched or colonized by the human race. What had transpired on this planet for the last 1,000 years was the equivalent of the Stone Age fast-tracked to the age of enlightened technologies, thanks to the lock left to us by the journeyman. The lock contained previously coveted knowledge that was reconstructed to better serve man. It seems there had been several attempts for man to humbly proceed through life with the things they conceived. Every time, it seemed, this was a bit more than we could handle. Some say these incidents were nigh uncountable, that they had happened so many times on so many worlds over that most of what we knew as history was simply lore. Some also say there is an all-changing force that will never let history of man repeat. They whisper Magnus, or the Magnus effect. On this new planet, there were obvious difficulties in colonizing any one part of the land, as it was 6 times the size of our Earth, with 2 times as many environments, and most of which were unexplored due to the lack of flight. The atmosphere on this planet was too thin for liftoff. There were, however, occasional sightings of strange objects in the sky. This resulted in a congested colony of aggressive men and women who fought and argued every resource obtained. In fact, since the existence of man on this new planet, we had only explored about 15% of its surface. That is, until the Great Seeking began. When the resources became less and less obtainable for those with privilege, the real panic from the NHC began to show. Suddenly things started becoming militarized that were once open. No expensive borrowed labor was spared, and droves upon droves of humans died from exhaustion and starvation until we were left with half of our population, in which 10% were in control. Thus began the Great Seeking. The plan was to set off in groups of 1,000 or so, with the intention of the obvious. Find and obtain new resources in order to prolong our own inevitable demise and eventual extinction. Again. But this was a new world with new influences, new terrain, and new adventure. Those are the words of the Baston Source Media, the unexposed lynchmen of the NHC, whose job was simply to distract the 90% from the intent of the NHC and the rest of the 10. And it was working like a charm. That teamed up with the Borrowed Labor Act, an ideal in which men and women were led to believe that they would be handed their dreams by way of blind faith, by hard work every day, until you reached a certain stage in life where you would retire from all the work and be waited on hand and foot for the best years of your life. Well, this made the search for Sikh Party volunteers easy for the NHC, with the promise of half-time until retirement for all who proceeded with this selfless act of heroism. Most of the 90% were fighting still over the opportunity to join the Sikh. Masses assembled within weeks and were organized rapidly as the resources were running out at an alarming rate. My name is Again, and I am a volunteer for the West Team. This is a small portion of one story in a universe of endless creation and how we finally broke the chains. Again. First they decided to start with 4 heads of team. They were assigned each a direction, north, south, east, and west. This was chosen by way of an ancient device left by the journeyman. This device was said to have aided in countless previous great seekings of past, some even over vast oceans. 3 each, A, B, and C. North, east, south, and west.